Hello, everyone. It's definitely good to be with you all again this afternoon. As you all know, we've been doing a series of conversations with some of our stakeholders as we all go through this time with the coronavirus. I'm so happy that many of you have sent your asks, you have sent your questions to various different agency heads. And so we are going to make sure we bring those various people onto our Facebook Live so you can speak with them. And before I introduce who our guest is for today, just want to give you an update on some things. We're now at 1,467 confirmed cases. 1,379 of those cases are positive Florida residents, 20 total deaths right now, 312 cases in Broward County, and 367 cases are in Dade County. And just a few more reminders, some things that we spoke about before, and that was continuing to practice social distancing from each other. And truth be told, we all should be in our households to making sure that we are doing our part to make sure we're not spreading this disease any further. As we all know that we are in a very interesting time. And I just believe that it's important that we all do our part to ensure that our families and our seniors, that they are taken care of. And as you know, for those who are in Broward County, we are on a lockdown if you're not going to do any essential things. And as it went through yesterday, what a non-essential and essential business is. And what they are, So just as long as you all are keeping those things in mind. Today, I know the students are on spring break, but we do know one person who is not on spring break right now because he has so much that's happening. I'm so happy to have him here. And we do have our superintendent from Broward County. We have Superintendent Robert Runcie. How you doing, Superintendent?
Doing okay. Just hope everybody out there is trying to stay safe and healthy. It's an eerie time when you go outside and you really don't see anyone out there on the streets or many places. So yeah, folks are trying to self-isolate to the extent possible. This is definitely a challenging time for all of us, and I worry about our families and our students during this time, especially those who are in some of the more fragile environments and circumstances.
And I know, Superintendent, that you and your school board members, you all have all been working tirelessly to ensure that our students continue learning. I know they're on spring break right now, but I'm going to give you the floor because there have been quite a few questions that have come to my inbox from parents who have come from teachers, and they just want to hear from the superintendent. And I know you've been very informative. So the floor is yours to begin to address our parents and to address the teachers and the concerns they might have, and just kind of give an update of where we currently are.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Representative Jones, for your leadership in the legislature. It's just really been tremendous, your support of our public schools, our programs, not just here in Broward, but throughout the state. And, the folks don't know how hard you fight and what you have to fight against up there to make sure that public schools continue to remain a priority. What I will say is that, as I reflect on, this moment we're in and what it means, I can tell you that our schools ultimately end up being a reflection of society at large, right? So there are four big issues that we've seen surface that we're trying to address. One, food insecurity. The second one is the digital divide and access to the internet. Third is adequate childcare. And I think the fourth we're seeing is the fragility of our healthcare system. On the first front, on the feeding and the food insecurity piece, last week, we ensured that we had some feeding sites available in Broward County. We set up 9 sites. When we open school and initiate learning on March 30th after spring break, we will start out with 47 sites. So we're expanding from 9 to 47 sites, and we'll add more as needed as we go along and determine that there's additional demand. So that's a priority for us because over 60% of students in Broward County qualify for free reduced meals. We serve breakfast and lunch, over 30 million meals a year. So a lot of our kids depend on the school district for their sustenance and nutritious meals each and every day. And so we've got to make sure we're able to do that. So it's primarily going to be, curbside, drive-up service, doing that in a way that is consistent with the social distancing and guidelines that we know we all need to practice out there. On the digital divide side, last Friday, as you know, we had a major distribution in Broward County. We issued 64,000 computing devices, laptops, on Friday, March 20th. That event was made possible by the significant investments that we made through the Smart Bond initiative. That initiative was when taxpayers approved our capital bond program. It allowed us to buy about 95,000 computing devices, reducing our student computer ratio from 6-to-1 to 2-to-1. So we now have technology to be able to support our students in this moment. We're having a second device distribution this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. for parents who couldn't make it to the event we had last Friday, or they went to a school that may not have had enough of the laptops. So we're going to have a second distribution. Details on that will be posted today. We're going to do parent links and notification out there. And of course, I want to encourage everyone to continue to go to the Broward Schools site. That's browardschools.com/coronavirus. And that site is updated daily with information on what's going on in the district. There's valuable information there for parents in the community. We also have a second site, and it's browardschools.com/learning never closes for additional resources.
Can you repeat that, Superintendent? Can you repeat that last one?
The last one is browardschools.com/learning never closes, all one word.
Okay.
All right, so the other piece of the digital divide is making sure folks have access. So you got the devices, they're not going to do you much good unless you get access to the internet. So we've been working with Comcast. They have a solution that's being offered to folks who need it, where you get discounted internet access, $9.95 per month. The first 2 months, the first 60 days are free. Thereafter, it's $9.95 per month. You go to Comcast, call them up, and no questions asked. They will set that up for you. So that's how we're trying to address the digital divide piece. On the childcare piece, last week we did open 9 centers, primarily for first responders, emergency first responders, and medical personnel, because we know if they're impacted, then they're going to impact the healthcare system ability to respond. And so we got to make sure that they're not sitting at home doing childcare when we need them out there working as well. And I certainly want to applaud them. They are definitely heroes in our society going out there doing that work. I have a daughter who's an emergency room doctor as well, so I know how challenging and scary that work can be. The other part of what we've been focusing on is what I just mentioned to you is called Learning Never Closes, but how do we reinvent our public education model to shift to distance learning? I can tell you in Broward Schools, we've had quite a bit of experience with this over the past few years. Several years ago, we invested in an online learning management system called Canvas. It has a variety of resources. It's got digital versions of our textbooks. There's lesson plans, digital resources, ways for teachers and students to collaborate. That is a foundation for what we will utilize going forward. The majority of our teachers have been accustomed to using Canvas. There's certainly been, there are teachers out there who haven't been. So we're taking time to make sure that we provide training and support to get those folks up to speed. We're also utilizing Microsoft Teams to promote ways for teachers to connect with students. We're asking all of our teachers to hold about 3 hours a day, basically what we call office hours, where students can come and engage with them. That's also true for our social emotional learning, mental health and wellness staff. Those are our school counselors, psychologists, social workers. We expect them to hold office hours as well, and students will be able to go and connect with them virtually and get the support they need. And touching on the last piece, again, the whole healthcare piece, we certainly heard that our healthcare workers are having challenges getting personal protective equipment, such as gloves, goggles, gowns, and masks. And so what we're doing in Broward schools is we are going through our allied medical programs that we have and health programs in Broward County schools, and we're rounding up our supplies of gloves and masks and whatever other resources are needed. And we're going to be donating those next week to healthcare institutions in Broward County. So we're going to go and do what we can to chip in to help with the crisis that's before all of us. And the final thing I'll say is, look, we're all moving into uncharted waters. This is a crisis that we haven't seen for generations. So it's uncharted waters for us. Yeah, we will make mistakes. One thing I know that's 100% that I know to be 100% true is that I'm not always right, but we will make mistakes. We will fix them and we'll move forward. I ask everyone to give us some patience, and yourselves some patience and grace as well. I know this is going to be a challenge for many of our parents, especially those with younger children, because you now have to function as effectively as a teacher aide. But look at it as an opportunity to connect in a very close way with your children and be a larger part of their learning experience. Those are just some of the highlights of where we are, but there's a lot of planning, a lot of work that's going on each and every day. So spring break is not a break for us. It's a time for us to get prepared for when we go back to teaching and learning. As I said, our campuses are closed, but teaching and learning is open and begins again on March 30th.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. So I do have a couple of questions that individuals are asking, but before I get to those, I know some teachers are who are concerned, like individuals who are the teachers' aides and things, and they're wondering about whether or not they will be paid while we're going through this time. Are there any assurances that those individuals who might not be salaried to ensure that they still will be employed after all of this is said and done?
Yeah, so folks like, paraprofessionals, teachers, aides, and so on, they will continue to, be paid. One of the big areas that came up was around substitutes. And so what we've communicated is that anyone who has effectively worked and had 40 hours or more in the pay period, we will continue to compensate them and pay them at that level, going forward as much as we can continue. But yes, we're going to try to continue to pay everyone who has been working with us in a regular capacity as much as possible. I view that as an essential responsibility for us. This is going to be an extremely difficult time for families. Broward County Public Schools is the largest employer in Broward County. And I think we can set an example of trying to make sure we take care of all of our employees, salary, full-time, part-time, to the greatest extent possible.
And Superintendent, when it comes to Comcast, you made mention for those families who probably don't have access to internet, do they just reach out to Comcast to ask for the service?
Yes, they just reach out to Comcast, ask them for the internet essentials. Again, they can go on our website too. That's the browardschools.com/coronavirus. There's information on there as well about the Comcast Internet Essential Service. But yes, they will call Comcast and tell them they want to sign up for it. Again, the first 60 days, there's no cost to them. And thereafter, it's $9.95 per month, $10.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions that some individuals have asked. One of the questions come from Vice Mayor Brian Johnson. He said, "Are there any plans to extend procurement deadlines without pushing projects back too far? How are we balancing the need to keep pace with construction schedules with the understanding that contractors and vendors are having a tough time meeting procurement deadlines under these circumstances?"
So my communications to our facilities and construction management team is that we're going to be moving full speed ahead. In fact, I think we have an opportunity here now that our campuses are going to be closed. We can actually get a lot more renovation work done. One of the reasons why some of the work takes so long for us in Broward County is that we've got to work around schools where there's children, there's faculty on the campuses. That significantly stretches out the time. Now that we don't have that, we need to take advantage of this opportunity to do as much work as possible. So our intent is to even think about how we can accelerate the work that we're doing. And of course, doing that with all the safety precautions in mind. But we have no intention of slowing down any of that work. We will continue that. That's what I've communicated to staff. I've been in contact with the governor's office as well on this topic, and I believe they share the similar position as well. So that work is going to continue, and I think it's going to be certainly helpful to our local economy, especially in this challenging time.
Thank you, Superintendent. So there's a question that came in from Cammie Hughley. She wants to know what plans are in place for preschool and Head Start tutors to get academic and social emotional support during this time of distance learning.
So as I said, the resources that we have, if she's referring to mental health staff and supports, which are our social workers, our school psychologists, other mental health professionals, they will be engaged. They will be doing their work through a virtual medium, but we're going to make sure that they are reaching out and connecting with students, helping to support teachers as they have in the past. So effectively, we're creating a virtual environment to deliver the services. Now, nothing's going to replace fully face-to-face personal interaction that our students have with our teachers. And I think this moment we're in, our society should start thinking about how valuable our teachers and our support staff are to this process. I think parents and everyone will see how hard this work really is. And hopefully we can come out of this struggle with a new appreciation, new set of perspective and values around the teaching profession, and see what we can do to fundamentally change. One of the things I'd love to do is to obviously change the whole entire compensation structure. I know you work on that, Representative Jones, but folks sometimes don't realize that our hands are tied because the funding we receive comes from the state. And we know that Florida ranks near the bottom at around $7,700 per student, and the national average is over $13,000. That really creates a constraint in our ability to properly compensate teachers. But again, hopefully the public across this entire country through this crisis recognizes how critical our schools and our teachers are to the functioning of this economy and this society.
As Superintendent, I know as you were speaking, there was some parents were asking about charter schools not or whether or not they have the same type of access as the the public school. I saw one comment about charter schools not having Canvas, and does the plans of Broward schools apply to charter schools also? Those are unless they're falling
Yeah.
a separate entity, right?
Yeah, so there's basically two types of public schools in Broward County. There are district managed schools and there are charter managed schools. The charter schools, they've got their own boards, they got their own policies, et cetera. We try to work with them to the extent that we can, but we don't have any control over necessarily how they function and how they do their operations. We do share all of our information and strategies with them. And many of them adopt some of the same things as well, but you know they're gonna be a little different. They're independent, and so you know I think as a parent, you can look at what the district's doing. Again, you go to our website, you can see the information we have out there, and you can push your charter school operator to take on similar strategies. For example, I think that making computing devices available to families. Now, mind you, when we went out and did the referendum that was passed that enabled us to purchase all these technology devices, we actually shared some of those referendum dollars with charter schools so they could go and buy computing devices as well. So I would submit that the charter schools are in a similar position to us in terms of being able to distribute devices. Number two, the Comcast Internet Essentials discounted solution is available across the entire country. So that's not something that's just unique to Broward County. So our charter schools should certainly be able to take advantage of that.
Thank you, Superintendent. And you're real popular. You have a lot of people watching right now, so people are very interested. For those who are watching, please share it because the questions that you all are asking, I'm sure could help some other people. So if you share the Facebook Live, that would be great. So Superintendent, there's a lot of questions that's coming in from parents who have children who are ESC, and they are looking at. It's a long question that came in. The number of parents of students with disabilities for whom the continued learning program that's currently been outlined by Broward County Public Schools will have added challenges. Would be confident to know more about how a specialized instruction and services would be delivered.
Yeah, so that is a big challenge for us in this environment. So there are some services such as speech pathology, which we could and will deliver through an online medium, but you think of there's some services, for example, what our behavior specialists might be able to do, that becomes a lot more limited. So we're trying to figure out how we deliver a variety of different services in a virtual mode. And again, some of them are easier than others. We are working our special needs department, which we call our exceptional service student education. Our ESE department is working closely with our ESE advisory to make sure that we're developing strategies and plans to address the over 33,000 students in Broward County that have IEPs. We're also going to have to work to go over those IEPs and work with parents. So our strategy is to try to collaborate as much as we can with parents and guardians to figure out how do we deliver some of these services, recognizing that virtual may not be the optimal way. So we're working through that now. It's a top of mind priority for us. And I'm checking in on a daily basis. I think we're making some headway, and parents of our ESE students are going to be contacted directly on how we intend to navigate the current moment and deliver to the best of our ability the services that are outlined in their IEPs, individualized education plans.
So along those same lines, Superintendent, because I saw Mr. Victor's just asked this question. Do you foresee teaching being? I know we can't tell. As you know, we live in a state to where it changes constantly, but do you foresee this going beyond April 15th to where teachers will be and students will be on distance learning for the rest of the school year?
Let me just say this. I will be surprised if they're not. Okay, just given where we're going, we just need to be realistic. My belief is that, and intention and plan is that we're going to go to the end of this school year using this virtual format, and it may even go longer. I'm hopeful that by the start of the next school year that a lot of these challenges will be addressed and we can get back to some sense of normalcy. But I absolutely believe that the remainder of this school year is going to be this new format that we will start on March 30th.
Yeah, I'm starting to figure it out also at the same time. I guess along the lines where there are a lot of questions that's coming in. So I know we got 15 minutes left, but there are some concerns from one of the parents that I read somewhere that if a parent wants to, they can keep their child back a year if they wish. And I know that's something
So the state has essentially said that all mandated examinations, including the Florida Standardized Assessment, the end of course exams, and others have been suspended and canceled. So they don't factor into grades and promotion. So as a district, we have the flexibility now to come up with criteria for promotions, graduation. As far as third grade promotion and holding your child back, that is something that we're going to have to work with collaboratively with parents who want to hold their kids back. Our intention is not to hold kids back when possible, but it's not going to just be a unilateral decision on one side or the other, whether the parent makes that decision or the district makes that decision without collaborating with the parents. So it's going to be a joint conversation between the district and the parent to see what's actually in the best interest of that student.
So along those same lines, when it comes to matriculation, some parents are concerned with whether or not like the plans for students who are like moving to graduate from middle school to high school with this abbreviated school year and elimination of tests, and how do they fall into the spectrum of their child matriculating from middle school to high school? Will it be effective considering that all the testing has been eliminated? I know the commissioner spoke about this.
So we still have assessments that we do. Teachers still have tests that they do as well. Students will continue to receive grades. I will tell you that the biggest indicator of student readiness and success is actually their course and class grades, and not necessarily the high stakes assessment that they take. So we're still going to have those. We're still going to have input and recommendations from our teaching professionals who know our students very well and intimately. They will be part of the process of making recommendations of who matriculates to the next level and how they matriculate. I think one of the things that we've worked on over the years is making sure that this transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, which is a pretty big one for many our students, and I know many of our families sometimes get concerned about that. We've done quite a bit in terms of working throughout the second half of the school year to try to ease that. We're going to have obviously challenges doing that now because we're operating in a virtual format. But again, students they'll graduate, they will matriculate to the next grade level. We're going to rely on our teachers, students' grades and performances as we've always done. And by the way, we may want to start questioning the value of these high stakes tests, right? As a part of the process.
Well, I did put forth a bill about it. It went nowhere.
Yeah, no, I know you have. Yeah.
So along the same lines of as far as exams are concerned, I know a lot of parents have sent in concerns when it comes to AP exams. And I just got a question from Ms. Daughtry. It said, will ACE students get credit for their classes towards the bright future since they will not be taking the ACE exams?
My understanding from the state is that the answer to that is yes. The state understands that there are limitations now in this environment, and the commissioner's words were, flexibility, compassion during this period of time. So they'll probably give out some guidance, I would imagine, within the next week or so on bright futures, but that's not going to be a hindrance for students to be able to qualify for bright futures, the fact that they are not able to take those exams.
And we have two more questions. Jamie would like to see if you can speak. Well, you already spoke towards that, and that was ESE. I apologize. Ms. Shapiro, she wants to know, how will schedule for next year work out? Will my son still earn his high school Spanish credit without the final? He is currently in middle school.
So will he earn what? I didn't get the last.
Will he earn his Spanish credit? How will his schedule work for next year?
Look, if he was in a program where he would earn his credit, yes, he would earn his credit. Should his course grade indicate that he performed well in the course, yes, he would earn that credit. And I'm assuming that he was taking some high school course. Is that the question there?
Yeah, he is. I believe, yes, he's taking a high school course. He's in middle school, but he's taking a high school course. So she just want to make sure he will still get his high school credit.
Yes, he will still get the high school credits for that. That's correct.
Okay. And the last question that came up is from one second, from Charles Cook. Will elective courses factor into graduation for seniors?
Well, elective courses?
Yeah.
Look, all the courses will be factored into graduation as they've always been. Students will be issued grades for them. We will make some adjustments, recognizing the moment we're in, and that there are probably some classes where it's a little more difficult to do the normal coursework in an online format, but we're going to work on some flexibility and some things that teachers can continue to do so that the students are able to finish out those courses, receive a grade, get credits for them, and graduate.
And this selfishly, this is for me, because I know when I was on education committee, I always had the concern to where distance learning and the digital divide, to where so many kids can get lost in the shuffle as we are in this transition, not realizing or knowing when we will go back. And so I think my biggest thing is, and I'm happy that you all are trying to check every box as much as possible, and that is to ensure that kids do not fall through the crack in this transition. So when they get back, they're further behind than they should have been. And so if they're ensuring individuals like myself who might have that very concern that kids falling through the crack, that the school district is doing everything they can to make sure that it doesn't happen, that they can start back on a good foot come next school year?
So that is a very valid concern. What I will tell you that is a unique feature of our Canvas learning environment is that it enables us to track the level of student engagement for every single student. So if we see that a student has not signed on, and by the way this works is we essentially are going to have a virtual school day, right? So students will get to school. They get to school by going to their single sign-on and authentication for Broward schools. They go in, they sign on. We see that as the analogy of getting to school. They enter school when they put in their passwords and everything and they authenticate, they get in. They then are put into a Canvas classroom that's assigned with their teacher of record, and they'll be able to, teacher has all their students there, they're able to monitor them, the conversation, and then interactions continue. If we find out a student has not showed up for school, that is, they're not in Canvas, we will utilize our education support staff, some of our pool subs and more full-time substitute teachers to go and make calls and try to really figure out what's going on. But we will be intentional in terms of reaching out to make sure that students who have not connected and signed into school and are participating and engaging, that we find out what's going on and figure out how we can address it. So in some ways, we have a greater audit trail, if you will, of students who are connecting and not connecting. And that's our way of, that's going to be our record keeping actually as well for the state and everyone else as to the quality and level of instruction that's going on. So yes, we're not checking attendance in the classroom anymore, but we have a way to actually check student engagement and making sure that they're showing up for participating in teaching and learning.
Superintendent, what about those students those seniors who probably have taken exams? They did like exam retakes prior to schools closing. What happens to them?
So again, the state has waived the requirement for those,
okay.
So we can rely on course grades as our way and input from our teachers to utilize to factor into the promotion requirements for our students. So again, the good news about this moment is that all of the high stakes testing that would be used. So for example, end of course exams counted for 30% of your grade. That's no longer the case, right? So they're waiving that 30%. It's not a factor anymore. So we're able to look at the work that you've done up to this moment and your performance in the course going forward to the end of the school year without taking into account any end of course exams. So I think for many of our students, it relieves, some of the pressure and stress that they would normally have, but they're still going to have to work. They're still going to have to engage. They're going to have to do assignments and work with their teachers to make it through the end of this school year so that they can, they can successfully matriculate to the next grade or graduate.
I'm not a parent yet, but yeah, I can only imagine like you have literally over 200 people who are watching this right now. So, which means that I know that this is a very important topic. I can only imagine that parents are very seriously concerned because they want to make sure that their child, we just spoke about this as far as not falling through the crack, but what is your advice to that parent who's like, listen, I'm home, my child is home, I really do desire my child to learn, but I don't know anything about teaching. Will the school district be interested in maybe doing a online tutoring for parents?
Yeah, so we have resources and guides that some are online. We're going to be putting more out there on that Learning Never Closes site. We also have staff who are working and developing videos that we're actually going to have on Beacon, which is our television station, to help parents to go through the education process. And I think this is a bigger challenge for parents of young kids, especially in our elementary grades, because they're going to have to be engaged. They're going to have to read with their child. They're going to have to provide a greater level of support. What I can tell them is that their classroom teacher will be there. They will be available. They'll be available online. You'll have an opportunity to interact with them. We also have resources that we'll have on our district site, including tutorials and other resources specifically for parents. And we're going to develop more and more because as we go along this process, we know our parents are going to be our biggest partner in ensuring that our students are successful. So yes, that's something that we're focusing on, and we're going to continue to provide guidance through documentation, through videos, through connections with teachers, whatever way that we can. So my message to parents, you are not alone out there by yourself trying to figure out how your child will get an education. We're here to support that. Education and learning continues. The district is here, our teachers are here, our support staff are here. We've got resources online, and we're going to get through this together.
We got about 5 minutes left, Mr. Superintendent, and I know that a lot of teachers are on, 3 of them have already made mention of it. They said that they miss their students and they want to know if they could use Zoom or some other type of digital platform to see their children.
So we do have a digital platform that we use in the district, and it's been a debate over the last couple of days whether we allow teachers to use Zoom to connect with students or not. So here's the challenge for us. I mentioned to you before that we have a walled garden, and part of the reason why we've created the environment that we have is because we've always kept safety and security of our students and teachers in mind. When you're using some of these third-party apps, such as Zoom, we don't have any control, and the teacher doesn't have a lot of control who is in that environment sometimes and who may be chatting with with a student. And so there's lots of concerns about sexual predators and other folks who may be trying to take advantage of this moment. The way Broward County's system set up, the only ones that can get in are going to be our teachers, our students. It's monitored. We have an audit trail of what's going on. So you can imagine this, even for teachers, is a protection. So if I'm a teacher and a student accuses me of something that occurred online, how are we going to figure that out using Zoom? Within our system, we have an audit trail for it. All the conversations, everything is actually tracked. So we have Canvas and we have Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams provides all the capability. You can have up to 250 people at once in a Microsoft team conversation. We use it regularly ourselves. We have many teachers who have been using it. This is all about change and people trying to adapt to it. I will have and my staff are going to have a conversation with a group of teachers. Hopefully our teachers union president as well raised some concerns. We take these issues very seriously. So we're going to sit down, talk to folks about what their concerns are about using Zoom versus the tools that we package for them, and walk them through that and begin to communicate the benefits and the rationale better. So we just need to do a better job of trying to communicate the rationale as to why we have structured an environment that we started this work back around the first week of March to really put a lot of these things in place. And, I think folks need to understand that the whole context here is that we have basically stood up a full-fledged online learning environment for 15,000 teachers and over 200, almost 270,000 students, literally in 2 or 3 weeks. And we've tried to do that in a way that is effective, a way that we believe continues the learning, teaching and learning the best way we can, and in a way that is actually safe and secure and maintains the integrity of our teachers and our students in a way that we can monitor and we can support that. And that's why we've structured it the way it is. So we'll have some clarity before the end of this week on the Zoom question, because I know it's out there and it looms large for many of our teachers. We're not ignoring it. We're evaluating and having some conversations about that now.
Well, Superintendent, I really appreciate that. I want to go off. I think I want to start on this hard question because I'm sure some people are asking, does all of this change how we view education from here on out?
Yes, it should. And so I think it should in a number of ways. One is, I think this is an opportunity for our teaching force to better leverage technology resources and find what that, and I think it'll help them to better personalize instruction for students. I don't believe anything is ever going to fully replace the face-to-face interaction and relationships that teachers and students have. That's just critically important. Technology will never replace that, but technology can enhance the learning experience. It can help our teachers be more effective. So I think that's part of it. I think the other piece about this crisis I mentioned earlier is that it puts front and center in this nation how critical our schools are to the functioning of our society and its economy. I think it is going to let parents and others see how difficult and challenging the work of our teachers is, and give a greater appreciation for that. And again, I hope that translates into greater investments in the teaching profession, not just here in Broward, but across the nation. But yes, I think this is going to help change education. I think some good things can come out of it, but we all have to be flexible. We've got to be open to learning new things. And I think those are going to be some positives out of it.
Well, listen, and right before we go, this is definitely a final question. Someone just asked about financial plan and whether or not there's a financial plan in place to assist child care providers and schools serving students in the private sector with recouping the diminishing funds caused as a result of the closures.
No, so we don't have any ongoing plans for child care related services in the district. It's a topic that we brought up to municipalities and some other agencies. At this time, we're not going to be running any child care centers or after school programs as we have done, under normal circumstances. So those will not be available in the current situation.
I appreciate that, Superintendent. And listen, any final thoughts you might have for parents, for teachers, and if you could repeat some of those online resources again, that would be great before you go.
Yeah. So again, as I always say, this is one of those moments I continue to think about the African proverb: "It takes a village to raise a child." For many, it's always been kind of put on the school system, and I think in this moment, we're seeing that it's going to take everyone, not just the school district. Parents and families are going to have to get more engaged, and I know it's a big, heavy lift for some of them, but again, we're going to be there with you. We're going to provide the resources. We're going to provide the support. We're going to continue to work with you to make sure that your child is successful. I think we also need to recognize that there are other partners that need to come into play. We've been working with folks like the food feeding South Florida, the United Way, the Hunger Coalition, and others, just to name a couple on the feeding side, to make sure that we're providing coordinated community support to not just dealing with food insecurity with our students, but also our families. So this is a moment where a lot of our community partners, agencies, we all come together as a big family and create a support network to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks, that we're looking out for our neighbors, our brothers, and our sisters. That's what this moment is. So sometimes when it's the worst of times, we can also see the best of human nature. And I think that we just need to take this moment and think about those things that are most important to us, right? It's not the things that we own or the petty differences that we have. It's about the relationships that we have. It's about the lives around us. And, this is a moment for a lot of us to connect with family and friends and work together to make sure that we're doing the best we can to make sure that the next generation, our children, come through this as a stronger group of individuals. So I'm going to try to make the best out of it. As they say, never waste a crisis, and we won't.
Thank you, Superintendent Runcie. I really appreciate you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. All right.